Vamos a hacer ayuda con la hora. Here's a video that will help you with time that we started today. Vamos a empezar. Let's start. Okay? La pregunta, ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? Se dice, what time is it? What time is it? The word it is implied. ¿Qué hora es? When somebody responds back with the time in a complete sentence, they're going to use one of two sentence starters. Es la una es una excepción. When it is 1 o'clock, saying there is an hour on the clock, we're going to use a singular form. Es la una. There is an hour on the clock. Versus son las 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For every other time, we're going to use a plural. It is 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock, all the way through 12 o'clock. ¿Qué hora es? Es la una. We're going to use this for 1 o'clock through 1:59 when we use 1. Versus son las that we'll use for 2 o'clock through 12:59. Okay? ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? Es la una or son las 2, son las 3, son las 4, son las 5, son las 6. Okay? All right. When we talk about the time, sometimes it is exactly the hour. For example, it could be 6 o'clock on the dot. We would communicate this as son las. Here we're going to need our numbers. Son las 6. And if we want to say on the dot, we can include the phrase en punto. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 6 en punto. It is 6 o'clock on the dot. Son las 6 en punto. 6 o'clock on the dot. If it was 2 o'clock, it would be son las 2 en punto. If it was 5 o'clock, son las 5 en punto. En punto means on the dot. So this would be at the top of the hour, okay? On the dot. Son las 6 en punto. Many times, though, it is not exactly that time on the dot. If we have minutes, for example, 5:15, it's 5 and 15 minutes, or 6:04, it's 6 o'clock and 4 minutes, we're going to construct a little bit longer sentence. So let's take a look at that one, 6:04. Let's say it's just a little bit after the hour, okay? So it's 6:04. I'm going to continue with my son las 6. Okay, so my hour is coming first, and afterwards I'm going to use the word and in Spanish, son las 6 y, and I will then include the minutes. Okay, so here if it's 6:04, my sentence would look like son las 6:04. Son las 6:04. Okay, so son las 6 en punto, son las 6:04. Okay, now why don't you try it out? I'm going to show you a few of these, and you're going to pause this recording. You're going to practice on a piece of paper, and you can turn the recording back on when you're ready. Try these out. How would you say it is 1 o'clock, it's 2:07, 4:14, and 6:22? Our first one, ¿qué hora es? It is 1 o'clock. Es la una. Es la una. Remember, this is an exception. It is 1 o'clock on the dot, so if we want to be very specific, our sentence could be es la una en punto. Our next one, 2:07, and the other three are all traditional. They are 2 through 12 o'clock, so we see the same sentence starter for all of them. 2:07, ¿qué hora es? Son las 2:07. I have my hour separated with the E from my minutes, okay? So it is 2:07. 4:14, ¿qué hora es? Son las 4:14. 6:22, son las 6:22. And here I'm communicating standard times. One is on the dot using en punto, and the rest of them I'm using the word y for and to separate my hours and my minutes. Okay? All right, más práctica. Vamos a ver. There are a couple different times on the clock that we are going to use different language than we've normally seen. So for example, if it is 15 after or 15 before, this commonly is a quarter. It's a quarter after the hour. Or it's a quarter before the hour, we're going to see some different language. The same if it is 30 minutes after, okay? So this would be 30 minutes after or half an hour. 6:30, 7:30, 8:30. Here's some different language that we'll see, okay? If I want to say that it is 5:15, right? I can communicate that one of two ways. I can say son las 5:15, meaning a quarter after the hour, okay? Or I can communicate that son las 5:15. You'll hear both ways when people communicate the time. Both of them communicate that it is 5:15. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 5:15. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 5:15. Notice here, you guys, that this is spelled differently than the word for. For, cuatro, T-R-O, is not equal to cuarto, that is R-H-A. So really pay attention to that this is saying a quarter, not it is 5:04. It's 5:15 or a quarter after 5, okay? 30 after. Let's say it is 1:30, okay? Here again, we've got our 1 o'clock. So we are going to start with our sentence starter, es la una. We can communicate this es la 1:30, like the middle of the hour. Okay, so that is meaning the middle, like the middle of the hour. Or we can communicate that as es la 1:30. Okay, so ¿qué hora es? Es la 1:30. ¿Qué hora es? Es la 1:30. Let's try some of those out. I'm going to write a few down. You try these out. Press pause and start it when you're ready. All right, check it out. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 3:15. It is 3:15. It's a quarter after 3. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 7:30. It is 7:30. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 9:15. It is 9:15 or a quarter after 9. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 11:30. Okay, it is 11:30. You could have written 15 here and 30 here, and everybody would have understood what you were communicating. Okay, son las 3:15. Son las 7:30 would also work in this situation. All right, vamos a ver. Let's see. We've got more here. So let's say that it is getting after the half hour. So when we look at times, communicating time, after it's 30 after. So let's say it is 12:34. Or it is 11:45, or it is 1:52. You will find a couple different ways to communicate that. When we get closer to the next hour, you will often see a menos strategy being used. So let's see this one. Let's say it is 2:50. Now it is getting a lot closer to 3 o'clock than it is 2 o'clock. We could communicate this as son más 2:50. But a more common way would be to round up to the next hour and subtract the minutes that are left. So saying it is 10 minutes to 3, right? Or it's 3 minus 10 minutes. Your sentence would look like this. Son las 3, so I'm rounding up to the next hour. It's almost 3 o'clock. Son las 3. menos, minus how many minutes? How many minutes until 3 o'clock? There's 10 minutes until 3 o'clock. Menos 10. So we could say, ¿qué hora es? Son las 2:50. Or, ¿qué hora es? Son las 3 menos 10. I'm rounding up to the next hour that it's closest to. I'm looking at how many minutes is it until that next hour. Well, just 10 minutes. So, son las 3 menos 10. Okay? We can use our cuarto with this too. So let's say we had, the time is 11:45. So it's a quarter to. We could use our traditional numbers, and we could say son las 11:45. Okay, so son las 11:45. But more commonly heard would be, ¿qué hora es? I'm going to round up, it's almost noon. So son las 12, rounding up to that next hour that it's closest to, son las 12, menos cuarto. Minus a quarter. It's a quarter to noon. Or we could say 15, and both of those would work too. Okay? Let's try this strategy out. This one's a little tougher. I'm going to give you a few of these. Again, press pause when we're done. So the first one is going to be 1:40. Let's do 12:57. And let's try 3:48. Why don't you try both ways? You could write the time. All right. ¿Qué hora es? In our first one, traditional way to say it would be es la 1:40. But a more common way would be rounding up. It's 20 to 1. So we would hear people say, son las 2 menos 20. So it is 2 minus 20 minutes, or it's 20 minutes to 1. You're going to see that for this strategy, we have got to round up, right? Son las 2. It is almost 2 o'clock. Minus how many minutes? How many minutes is it going to take us to get to 2 o'clock? There's 20 minutes. So son las 2 menos 20. Our second example, ¿qué hora es? Son las 12:57. It is 12:57. Or we could round up and we would hear es la 1 because it's almost 1 o'clock. How many minutes to 1 o'clock? Only 3. So es la 1 menos 3. It's 1 minus 3 minutes. Or it's 3 minutes to 1. 3:48. Son las 3:48. Okay? We could also communicate that by rounding up. It's almost 4 o'clock. So son las 4 menos 12. In 12 minutes, it will be 4 o'clock. As we get closer to that next hour, you will see it more common that people will use the menos strategy as they get closer. Okay? So there's two different ways to communicate this time. All right. Vamos a ver. Let's take a look. There's one more thing that I want us to cover today. And that is, how do we differentiate between AM versus PM? Okay? So how are we going to communicate that? Because if it's 7 o'clock, it could be 7 in the morning, or it could be 7 o'clock in the evening. It's really hard to know which one it is. So we're going to use one of 3 phrases to make that clear. We can say, de la mañana, to indicate that it's in the morning, or AM. We can say, de la tarde, to communicate PM and it's afternoon. And we can use de la noche to communicate PM and that it's in the evening. De la mañana, de la tarde, de la noche. So when we have something like 7 o'clock, it's very ambiguous. If I see 7 o'clock and I ask, ¿qué hora es? Am I talking about 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.? Is it 7 in the morning or is it 7 at night? We're going to use this phrase, de la mañana or de la noche, to make sure that's clear. So if it's 7 in the morning, the sun is coming up. This would look like son las 7 de la mañana. Versus it's 7 o'clock at night and the moon is coming up. It's kind of a pathetic moon, but that's okay. Son las 7 de la noche. And here I will know very clearly that this is an example of PM versus this one is AM with my phrase de la mañana or de la noche. Okay? Bien hecho, chicos.